Machel Allen, what exactly are microcaps, and why do I want these minnows in my portfolio?
Well, Greg, microcaps are a vastly undiscovered space in the public equity markets. Typically, we are going to consider them at $50 to $500 million in market capitalization, and we're going to look all over the world for them. You want them in your portfolio because they are undiscovered, because you don't have constant information flow about them out there. You're going to get that information arbitrage opportunity off of these securities, and frankly, incredibly diverse.
And how are they correlated to small cap stocks? Are they just kind of like the little brothers?
They're not, actually. Because there's so little information dissemination, they act more like private equity. So the correlations to other public equity markets are quite low. Over the long term, a correlation of usually 0.7 to other small caps and about 0.3 to the S&P.
And what about U.S. microcaps versus those in Europe or Japan? How do they differ?
Well, I think it would be surprising to most people how they differ. I think the U.S.-centric view of microcaps is these are the startups. These are the early growth companies, and in many cases they are. In the non-U.S., though, the average microcap company is over 31 years old. They have higher dividend yields than their counterparts in the U.S., more cash flow. These are typically more mature companies in smaller countries.
So how do you approach a microcap portfolio at Metis?
Well, we are value investors, so we're going to be scanning the world, whether it's microcap or our larger cap portfolios, and we do invest all over the world, including emerging and frontier markets, and we're going to be looking for value from the bottom up. The global microcap space is no different. The information is there. The liquidity is now there, and we're going to be looking for good companies with cash flows in place that are trading at a discount to what they're worth.
And what about currencies? Because right now, whenever you invest abroad, you always have to take the currency into account because of the divergence between the Fed and the ECB and the Fed and the BOJ.
Sure. Well, I think it depends on what your mandate is for investing. If you're a short-term tactical investor, I think currency hedging is definitely a consideration. We are long-term fundamental investors, and academic research clearly shows that over the long period of time, currency hedging washes and actually ends up being a net negative. So we do not hedge our currencies because we expect to own these securities for the long term.
And you hold a lot of microcaps in a portfolio because these are small. We're not talking about an IBM that's going to be around for another 100 years. These things still are, they're tiny.
Well, they might be the IBM
how many, for
one day.
example, how many stocks in your particular fund?
Right. Well, let's put it in the context of the overall universe to start with. The global microcap universe is massive. There's over 13,000 securities in the global microcap space. We own about 300 of those at any one time. So from the perspective of the universe, we're actually very, very concentrated. We really get to pick the best of the best in that space.
All right. Thanks a lot, Machel.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for watching The Street.